Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Monday edition of the Yard. Modulating a little high there. We'll fix that for you. It is a great day, as it should be, because we picked up a big 3-game sweep over the weekend of Kentucky. We expected to do that, and I guess more to the point, we hoped to do that. But we did take care of business. We'll break that down. I also had a chance to attend the Saturday morning scrimmage for Mississippi State football. Got a chance to watch most of that before we went over to baseball. We do have a full report over on genespage.com. Paul was there the entire time and put everything together. We all kind of, had some statistical categories that we kind of kept up with. And Dave Murray, of course, did the transcript of Mike Leach post-practice. So you can find all of that over at genespage.com. Happy to be a part of that and hope that you enjoy our coverage of that. It was a busy weekend, but listen, it was so great to be back at Davis-Wade Stadium. Walking in there, I even told Mike Nemeth, I said, man, I really miss this place. And it's one of those things that I never take for granted because there's so many great moments that have happened there, and we've been able to take part in that and cover that and witness it for you guys. But it was good to be back. I'm very appreciative of Mike Leach, Dave Emmerich, Brandon Langlois, John Cohen, and others that okayed the media to be there. Now, we could not do any live tweeting or reporting as it happened, only kind of after the fact. But despite that, it was just a great time to be back. And listen, we were like a bunch of kids up there. It's like, you know what, it's cool for us to be back here. A lot of pregame stuff went on, a lot of situational stuff before they actually got down to the scrimmage, probably about 70 snaps total when it was all said and done. So we'll break that down for you, too. I'll tell you who looked good. And, a couple guys that didn't participate as well due to injury. But, a lot of people see that and they think, oh, what's going on here? They're going to be careful with guys in the spring. There's no point in turning a temporary situation into a long-lasting one. So there were some guys that didn't participate. Now, there is a possibility, too, that the media will be able to attend the scrimmage this coming Saturday. I will not be there. I will be in Auburn, Alabama, as the Diamond Dawgs are on the road. I have not been to Auburn for a baseball series since 2016. Didn't go over in 18, and then, of course, we didn't play in 2020. So it'd be the first time in a long time I've been to Plainsman Park. I'm eager to get back there. Last time I was there, we watched Dakota Hudson and Austin Sexton absolutely deal over at Auburn. Had a great weekend there. It's, of course, it's the last time Mississippi State won the SEC regular season title. So that Auburn team somewhat resurgent. We'll discuss that somewhat today on the show as we kind of recap what happened in the SEC over the weekend. Very grateful to Butch Thompson and his club for taking a game from Arkansas at Baum Stadium. Had a really good chance to win that series. They couldn't close the deal. But anytime that we can see teams like Ole Miss and Arkansas that are our competition in the West drop a game, and we do know that Arkansas and Ole Miss will play head-to-head, I suspect that'll be a split series. So both of them will probably pick up a loss. Somebody will pick up two, barring any weather concerns there. So anytime we can get somebody to take a game from somebody that we're not expecting, that is a big thing for Mississippi State. Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of this show. I know the young men in my house over the weekend were able to break bread, and it was Bulldog Burger Company. We had a little bit of a guys' weekend. My youngest son had two of his best friends over, and they had Bulldog Burger Company for supper on Friday night. Still think that basically they had lunch too, because the portions are so big. And I had some people tell me, you know what, Steve, you're right about that. I have noticed that when I go to Bulldog Burger Company, I get my money's worth of meal, and you will as well. 2 locations now to serve you right here on University Drive in Start Vegas, and then on Gloucester Street there in Tupelo. Have the spring rolls. They will make you better looking. I had somebody message me and say, you know what, Steve, I didn't know that. I tried that. I walked out and had, 3, shall we say, mature ladies make some comments. So maybe you too could be popular with senior women by eating the spring rolls. So give it a shot. You never know what luck will bring you. Bulldog Burger Company, the place where people go to meet. MEAT. All right, let's talk baseball. I could do that year-round. It was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series for us and most of the league this weekend. And so we kind of got a bonus day for Easter, which was kind of cool because it's very rare in our profession to get a weekend day off. Unless the Bulldog football team is off one weekend, we don't get a lot of time off for weekends. And so It's Easter Sunday. I hope you guys enjoyed some time with family. Listen, we kind of just relaxed around here. We, we slept in a little bit and got out and did some things around the house and went to the movies with, a couple of kids and just had a good time. And so I hope you guys did that as well. And so for those of you that I didn't get a chance to talk to on Sunday, happy Resurrection Day. And listen, if you don't celebrate the holiday, I hope you had a day off to kind of enjoy some time with friends and family. It was so much easier to relax today because of the fact that the Bulldogs took care of business. And we broke down the Thursday game on Friday, so we won't rehash that again. But let's take a look at what happened in that ball game on Friday. And it was somewhat eventful, shall we say. We expected a pitching duel. That's exactly what we got. Thought Will Bednar was really, really good for Mississippi State. And, listen, and let's give some credit to Cole Stoop, too. He was really good, too, just not as good. So we get into the first inning, and Bednar just, does a great job there. He strikes out the side, pitches around a 2-out single. And the cool thing about it is a lot of swing and miss in that early inning. Did not have a 2-ball count in the first inning. And those are the things that really excite me because when Will is on top of his game, he is getting a ton of swing and miss, and he's very efficient for the most part pitching-wise. He doesn't go out there and waste a lot of pitches and get behind hitters and run his pitch count up. If you want to make it to the big leagues, pitch efficiency is the deal. Everybody talks about velo and that sort of stuff, but being able to be efficient with the pitches to allow you to go deeper in ball games, one of the things that MLB scouts are looking for. It's not just about stuff. It's about being able to manage an inning, and that's what Will did. Of course, as I mentioned, you give up the 2-out single there, but then go right back and strike out Collette looking. And I'll tell you, the thing about Collette, that's the first baseman for Kentucky. That dude's a big leaguer, man. I really like the makeup of his game, and that's one of the best things about covering Mississippi State baseball is you get to see so many great players even on other teams, and really impressed with him throughout the weekend. So we get in the bottom half of the first, and Bulldogs, we get a strikeout swinging with Skinner. I'm still a little bit concerned about him in a leadoff spot. He hadn't had a lot of experience. We're kind of throwing him to the wolves and kind of hoping for the best, but he is a guy, once he gets on base, is absolutely electric. So he strikes out, and then we get a ground out to the pitcher by Rowdy. TA is hit by the pitch, and then Cam James barrels one up but lines out to left field. So nothing doing for either team there in the first. That was kind of the case for the first couple of innings, really, to be honest with you. We go out, Will again, a 1-2-3 inning, 2 Ks in the second, and then we go 1-2-3 in the second. Grounded out some balls, and a lot of that, too, is because Stupp throws a pretty good sinker. We've seen some of that, and it looks like a fastball coming out of the hand, but it's got some downward action. So you're hitting the top half of the baseball and beat it in the ground. We got to get better at that. We got to be able to hit the ball up. We got to be able to get those bad angles right. Bednar again goes 1-2-3 there in the third, a couple of Ks again, and nobody really hitting him hard. 1-2 ball count here, and the other two were 3-pitch Ks. Outstanding effort, and again a lot of swing and miss with him. We get into the third, we go 1-2-3 again, grounding out again, 2 ground outs and a K. And then we get to the fourth, and this is when the ball game, probably the really biggest offensive threat of the night for Kentucky, and it happened here in the top of 4. You get a fly out, and then Rhodes, with his second hit of the night, gets a double on an 0-2 pitch. That's one of the things that kind of surprised you a little bit, because usually Bednar finishes guys. And then Collette hits a 1-1 pitch over the center field wall to make it a 2-0 ball game. Collette, again, an outstanding player. Bednar, I thought, really got a little irritated behind that. Bared down, got a couple of Ks to get out of it. One of them did go full count, and that's the thing. It's cool, too. You get all the way to the bottom of you get through the top of 4 innings, and you finally get a full count. Again, all about pitch efficiency. State tries to answer right back in the bottom of 4. Rowdy gets on base with a single to right. TA strikes out looking. That was a bit of a surprise, too. I don't know if he was expecting a waste pitch there, but they got him on a fastball right there on the inside corner. Cam James then follows with a single to center. So now you got runners at first and second here with less than 2 outs. You're thinking, okay, a base hit here. We can kind of climb back in this thing. And Luke Hancock at the plate, and we know what Luke can do. He does ground out to first. We move the runners around second to third, and then Logan Tanner grounds out to third. Nice play by the third baseman there, but first pitch swinging And it felt like, you know what, we didn't need to strain a couple of runners, but we felt like with the way Bednar was pitching, you know, he would kind of hold the game in place, and that's exactly what he did. Get to the fifth, and E-Step reaches on an error by Lane Forsythe, really just a routine ground ball. And we blew it, and you're going to have that. There's going to be some up and down with young players, but listen, Forsythe, absolutely our best defensive player on the infield, I believe. But this is one he should have had, and he'll tell you the same thing. But guy gets on base. Bednar doesn't let it bother him. They get a sack bunt down. Then we get a fly out to center, and then a ground out to third. And that's the end of the half inning. The side's retired there. So the error doesn't come back to bite us. In the fifth, we go 1, 2, 3, and again, grounding out, hitting that sinker, beating it in the ground. We get to the sixth, and this is when State kind of makes some things happen. So we opened up with a walk, and this is when Bednar, you could tell, was starting to show a little bit of fatigue. We get a wild pitch there to send Kessler to second. We finally get Rhodes out. He grounds out to Hatcher on a full count, and then the runner goes to third. We walk Collette intentionally. I 100% support that because with less than 2 outs, you're thinking even if he elevates the ball somewhere in the outfield, it's going to be a sac fly to put him up 3-0. We get Church to strike out looking. At that point, you kind of felt like we were going to get out of the inning. We do. Anu gets a fielder's choice there, but we do force Collette there at second. So despite the fact that Bednar was beginning to show a little bit of fatigue, and he did have the one walk there, we were able to kind of work around that. We get into the bottom of 6, and this is where I think we see the Braylon Skinner effect, right? They walk him on 4 pitches, which what's incredible, Stoop, I think, had walked 4 hitters the entire season before this at bat. And you walk Skinner to open up the inning, and then Rowdy follows with a single. What do you know? Rowdy Jordan starting to get going a little bit here. So Rowdy gets a single. You got runners at first and second. TA singles to right, drives in a run, and that's that crazy play that you guys have seen. Braylon Skinner kind of making the Euro step dive. And the throw to the catcher from right field, and I give the right fielder a lot of credit. He really came up firing, takes that ball on the run, has the crow hop. The throw just happened to run up the line a little bit, which kind of had the catcher kind of having to reposition. So he has to pull left, which allows Skinner to get in beside him. And it's just a great play. I mean, and listen, our social media people, I know we've made some new hires in the marketing department there to kind of handle social media. We have hit a new level with that. I mean, it is tremendous the last couple of weeks, the work those people are doing. And that Braylon Skinner sequence was outstanding. So they reviewed the play at home. He's safe. And really, I don't blame them for reviewing that, but it was obvious he was safe. The right call was made. Camp James absolutely murders a pitch right at the third baseman. And again, Camp's hitting baseball pretty well right now. They try to double up at first. They don't get TA. He gets back. They review it. He's fine. And then Hancock, another sac fly to drive in another run. So now the game is tied. It's a 2-2 ball game, and you know Bednar's coming out, but you say, you know what, he's got us into the 7th inning, and we can feel pretty good about that with the way that our bullpen is working. Cam Tuller comes in and was outstanding, and that's one of those things, too, with him. He's not a household name yet, but it seems like every time we tried him out there, you know, he had a little kind of a rough outing out in Texas, but ever since then, he has been outstanding. Cam gets a 1-2-3 inning, a line out, a fly out, and a ground out. And again, you're pitching the contact there. That's about pitch efficiency. Make them hit your pitch, get themselves out. It's a 1-2-3 inning. We get out of there. We get into the 7th. We get a fly out. We get a K. And then Forsythe singles to left field. One of the guys around me brought this up. You know, we talk about, it may have been Joe Coleman. We talked about this. You know, when Logan Tanner left the lineup and left the program, and you hate that because he is such a good kid, Landon Jordan, excuse me. So when Landon leaves the program, everybody's like, well, you know, he didn't do anything to lose the job. And he didn't. He didn't. He's just not quite as talented as the other guys that have replaced him. You need Cam James' bat in the lineup. You need Forsythe's glove in the lineup. But here's the deal, is in the net change of this deal, I really think that Forsythe's bat has been better than Landon Jordan's. Now, I don't know that I expected that to happen, but that's been the case. Now, yeah, he's had some at-bats sometimes where he's chased some pitches, but more times than not, the kid has done a good job defensively and offensively, and I think he's a guy that will be around for a long time. I think he'll do a good job for State. I don't think he's a pro prospect at this point. Probably be here 3 or 4 years. I don't think he's a guy that'll look to leave early. Forsyth gets a single, and then Skinner grounds out the first unassisted. We don't get anything going there, but now again it is a 2-2 ball game, and as we're getting down to the final 2 innings, a lot of people are thinking, well, maybe this is it. Maybe we're going to go at extra innings. You bring in Landon Sims, who gets a K looking on 3 pitches, a ground out to shortstop, and then gets Rhodes to strike out swinging on 3 pitches. We talk about pitch efficiency. You can't do it. You can't do it much better than that. We get into the 8th here, and this is just good situational hitting, and I wrote about this over on Gene's page. This is the thing I love about Luke Hancock. This is a guy that does the little things. He doesn't always fill up the box score, but I think going into Saturday's game, he had struck out 7 times. The average Bulldog starter has struck out 13, almost 14 times on the course of a season, and there's Luke getting half of that. Leads the team in home runs and walks, and then it's not striking out. That's a guy you want it to play in RBI situations. I understand why we have him at 5th, but I tell you, that's a guy, too, sometimes I wonder why he's not hitting 2nd. All right, so Rowdy gets us going, and again, here we go again. Rowdy Jordan starting to hit. Rowdy Jordan singles to right field on the very first pitch. TA's in hit by the pitch. They pull stop. And then TA goes to second, a wild pitch. Rowdy goes to third. Now you've got runners at second and third with nobody out. Cam James fouls out to the first baseman. Not a productive out there. But then Luke Hancock steps up. Craziness ensues here with the fly out there to right field to allow what proved to be the winning run to score. And so, again, that's great situational hitting. That's a guy not trying to do too much, a guy that's got a good approach, and that's exactly what we talked to Luke about in the postgame is, what are you thinking about there? And he goes, you know what, I'm sitting there looking for a fastball because the very first pitch, was a breaking ball that went all the way to the screen. He can't afford to, make a mistake there. We thought he might even walk him to load the bases to set up a force any base. They don't. Probably a mistake, and in hindsight, you could call it a mistake. But he absolutely murders that pitch, gets it up in the air, elevates it, and then it runs home. And again, that's a sac fly. Doesn't help the batting average, but it helps the team. That's one of the things I love about Luke Hancock. He is a team-first guy. He does the things that helps the team move. Love his approach to the plate. Love his approach to the game. He's just a good old boy from Houston, Mississippi. He does exactly what we need him to do. So Sims comes back out for the 9th. And we right out of the gate, we give up the single to Collette. And, I've always joked that, when the first guy reaches, it's like 776,000% of the time they come around to score. So when that happened, I thought, well, here we go. But Sims didn't agree with me. So we get a sac bunt down to move the runner to second. And then they get the infield hit there, and you're thinking, okay, here we go. We're in trouble. And the single to shortstop was a drop pop fly. Now, this can't happen. All right, now one of the things that I'll say about that, when you're watching it live, you never know who's doing what. But looking at the replay, it looked to me like Forsythe's calling the ball. I am completely okay with that because he is a shortstop. He's a captain of the infield. However, if you call it, you got to catch it. The flip side of that is I really need my seniors to step up and make a play there, whether it's Hatcher, whether it's DeBrule. Because theoretically, that should be Scotty DeBrule's ball. It is a pop-up just right of the mound, more towards second base. He's got to make that play. And I was disappointed that happened. Like all of you, it's like, what? Why are we not able to fill pop-ups? Why has this happened? We had the one between DeBrule and TA that fell at LSU. Then we had one against Arkansas that basically opened up the floodgates. They hit a 3-run bomb behind it. This time we're able to escape. Because Landon Sims kind of calms everybody down and says, hey, baby, we got it. What happens very next pitch? You get a ground ball back to Sims, and he goes to second. We turn the double play. Ball game's over. State wins 3-2. And a lot of people say, well, we got lucky. No, we didn't. We executed. There's a difference. And that's one of the things that we have become very skilled at is winning these close ball games. When it boils down to the bullpen, 9 times out of 10, we're going to win. And when you got Landon Sims out there, rolling out there with Whitesnake, I don't know how you can lose. So good decision to use him. Other people say, Steve, are we using him as efficiently as we should? If we're in Omaha or we're in a regional, you probably see him a couple times on the weekend. But you know what? You got to get some other guys some work. you have to get some other guys some work. And in this situation here, Landon goes out and was really efficient with his pitches and probably could have come back on Saturday. But we win the game on Friday, and I keep getting my days confused because I'm not used to this Thursday, Friday, Saturday schedule. But we win game 2, and at that point, we're just wanting to get the sweep, right? There have been so many times over the last 5 years, we win the first couple of all games and aren't able to close the deal. And so we get into Saturday, and I'll be honest with you, just walking into the ballpark, it felt like it was going to be a good day. Just one of those things that was just a Christmas in the air. I said, you know what, this is going to be good. I get into the gate, and they're playing Dr. Feelgood from Motley, and I said, you know what, it's going to be a great day. I mean, how cool is this, Bulldog baseball and some Motley crew on a Saturday, knowing that I got a Sunday off? What could be better? And then we get up there to the meal, and Mike Nemeth gives me his bag of chips, and I open up my pregame meal, and lo and behold, I got 2 desserts in there. I'm thinking, how can we lose? What a great start to the day. Bulldogs did their part to ensure that the day was not ruined, thankfully. Let's get into Game 3. Kentucky throwing their normal Saturday guy, Zach Lee. That's what they did. They threw off on Thursday and kept their Friday and Saturday guys on schedule. We're throwing Jackson Fristow, who I think has really been outstanding for us. I mean, I think that guy is a future Friday night guy for us. I love the fact this kid's got so much moxie already. He feels like he deserves to be on the weekend, and he is pitching accordingly. Now, of course, we didn't get off to the best start, right? We walked the first guy on 4 pitches, Schultz, who is a great base stealer. Collette then flies out to right field, and then we get Rhodes swinging on a busted hit and run. So it's a strike him out, throw him out, which was the first caught stealing of the year for Kentucky. I researched that prior to the weekend because I said, that's kind of astonishing to think that they're 100%. We talked about that earlier last week, kind of letting you guys know they're going to run the bases a little bit. They did not attempt a stolen base on Thursday or Friday. They finally give it a shot on Saturday and try Logan Tanner on for size, and he absolutely gasses a guy. And a great tag by Tanner Leggett there at second. Really did a nice job there. And so we're out of there with a double play. But more importantly, there's a big statement that's been made there. It's like, you know what, yeah, we want to run the bases, and we haven't done it. We've kind of been uncharacteristically quiet on the base paths. So we're going to take a shot early in the ball game and see if we can't make something happen. And then Logan absolutely just takes that away from them. So we come out and we, Skinner strikes out swinging on a full count. And again, I like a leadoff guy that'll work the count early on. I don't like all this first pitch swinging with the leadoff guy in the first inning. I want to see the pitcher work a little bit and kind of see what he's working with, what he can throw for strikes, how good does that breaking ball look. And so Braylon does a good job working the count here. But listen, when it's a full count, if it's anywhere close, he's swinging. And sometimes you can say that's the right thing, but sometimes he does swing at ball 4. I think once he gets a few more reps and some more in-game at-bats, that you'll see some of that get better. Rowdy then triples to center field at one of those crazy things where a ball is lost in the sun. We joked around about that, but it was a high sky, and that sun was just beating down on folks. And so Rowdy gets a triple. We make them pay for it. TA flies out to right field. Sack fly there. It's a 1-0 ball game, and then Cam flies out. Well, the sun giveth and the sun taketh, because right back in the second inning, the top of second, basically the same thing happens to us. Kessler flies out. I knew that in the box score is a double. It was a pop fly behind third that Lane Forsythe lost in the sun. And again, that's not a criticism of him. It was just that kind of day. And then Church flies out to left field. E-step singles up the middle, and they score the run. And so both runs for each team were sun-aided. We talk about wind-aided. I do a little wind report on Twitter before the ball games. Maybe I need to start doing a sun report too, now that we're going to start having more clear skies out here. But both runs, our first run, their first run, both guys reach on balls that should have been caught. They were lost in the sun and ultimately come around and score. It's crazy how it happened, but it was even for both teams. Well, Luke gets it right back, murders the first pitch he sees, and it one-hopped the stadium. What I mean by that is it cleared the student section out in right field, took one hop, and then left the park. An absolute tank there for him. And then Logan Tanner gets a double. And so it felt like, we had Lee in trouble. Then Hatcher grounds out to the short. Tanner's able to take third. Leggett is then hit by the pitch. So we got runners on first and third. And what happens? The young kid, Forsyth, singles to the left side, drives in a run. Now we got runners at first and second. So we've picked up 2 runs in the inning. And then Skinner puts the ball in play on the very first pitch, and they force Forsyth out at second. But then that change here is that we have taken a lead. We've gone from up 1-0 to tied 1-1 to now we're up 3-1 there in the second. And so Fristow, with a couple runs to work with, you just kind of felt like, you know what, this kid should be okay. And he absolutely was. We get into the third, and we pitched around a walk here, but you get a couple of Ks. You get one swinging, one looking, and we do have the walk to Collette. I think that was one of those intentional walks. It's like, you know what, we're not going to give you anything to hit. And if we end up walking you, we're okay with that, especially with a 2-run lead. And then Rhodes pops out to second, and Tanner Leggett caught that pop fly like a champ. It had been a struggle for everybody else. And Tanner's like, guys, I got it. He called it immediately, settled under it, had the glasses down. There was no anxiety at all with that. So good on you, Tanner Leggett. Bottom of third, we go 1-2-3 in the inning there. Again, putting the ball in play, but we're just not getting through with that big base hit just yet to kind of break this game open. Again, putting it in play, not doing much with it. Fristow gets a 1-2-3 inning in the fourth. And then Logan Tanner comes out there and just kind of pokes one up into the Atkerson Plaza up there, just inside the right field fair pole out there to make it a 4-1 ball game. And that off the bat, I thought that thing was probably off the wall, and it just kept going and going and going and going. There was barely any wind on Saturday at Duty Noble, but we'll take it. And that's one thing too I think about when I look at that right field porch. I'm thinking we ought to be able to get a lot of left-handed hitters that want to hit big numbers here. So Hatcher grounds out. Leggett singles up the middle. Again, Tanner Leggett making the most of his opportunity. I believe he was on base his first 3 times. We had a couple hit by pitches and a single maybe. Forsyth strikes out swinging, and then Skinner grounds out to first unassisted. But again, State does some damage there, kind of moving the game along. We get to the fifth. Cumbus comes in for Skinner, and so I asked about this in postgame just because I was curious. I know you guys are a little bit worried that maybe perhaps that knee injury had kind of popped up again because you remember he got beamed on the knee last weekend, had to leave the ball game. This was completely unrelated. He just felt like he tweaked a little bit of a hamstring, and rather than push the issue, they put Cumbus out there, and Chris Lamonis expects Skinner to be fine this week. He may not play against Southern on Tuesday, but he'll be good to go as we get ready to go to Auburn. So we're trying to extend the starters a little bit, and so Fristow I thought was really good early on in here and then began to kind of wear just a little bit. We get a couple of Ks, and then we walk Hill on 4 pitches, and then Schultz doubles to right center to drive in the run. So now all of a sudden it is a 4-2 ball game. We walk Collette again, and then we get Shelby, who came in for Rhodes as a substitution there, and we get him to K to end the inning. And that ended the day for Fristow. But again, I thought he pitched well enough to win the ball game, and he was credited with the win. Really thought he did a nice job, and we want these guys to go a little bit deeper in ball games. We got that from everybody this weekend, McLeod, Bednar, and Fristow. So you're starting to see the SEC weekend rotation not just settle in name and settle in role, but you're beginning to see these guys work deeper in the ball games. And as good as we are in the pen, we can kind of piece it together, those final 3 innings. If we can get, we'd like to get 6, but if all we can get is 5, we'll take it. But everybody, I thought, pitched really well. We had 3 quality starts over the weekend. It was a big part of winning these 3 games. So we get into our half, the bottom half of the fifth, and Rowdy reaches on an error by the center fielder. Just bounced off his glove, another one that got lost in the sun. And then we get a ground out, line out, and a ground out. So we're not able to do anything with the error there and the leadoff base runner. But we get to the 6th there, and the game really kind of slowed down from here. You bring in Preston Johnson, who I think is kind of an unsung hero on this team. I think he is more electric with his stuff than people fully appreciate. This is a guy that's going to get a lot of swing and miss. He throws a heavy ball, so he does get a lot of ground balls. Really like him getting under bats, and I think that he is a guy that'll be a big factor on weekends. he does give up the single, but then you get a double play. We just talked about that heavy ball, right? And then we get a fly out to center. And so we're out of that thing with just the minimum number of hitters. And then we go in the sixth and get a couple of Ks. Leggett's hit by the pitch, and then Forsyth grounds out to second. So nothing doing for the Bulldogs. We get to the seventh. And again, Preston Johnson's still right back out there. We just need him to give us a couple of innings, right? That's exactly what he does. You get a strikeout looking, you get a ground out to first. And one of those, this is a crazy play too, where they had the bunt down, and then the runner runs inside the first baseline. And we had some of this discussion in the press box, and I don't say this to be critical of anybody, but there are a lot of people that get it this way. Well, he was in the baseline. No, he was left of the baseline. And so it was an intentional act to try to cut down the angle of the throw, and so the ball hits him in the back. And if he's running right of the baseline, if he's right of it, they have a second line out there, right, to give you a running lane. And if you're outside of that, if you're inside the running lane, more towards the left side of the first baseline, and the ball hits you, you are out. The home plate umpire was on it immediately. They reviewed it. The call stood. It was the right call. I do believe it was a deliberate act, but you know what? That's part of baseball. Sometimes you got to kind of push the issue a little bit. Sometimes you get calls, sometimes you don't. If the ball doesn't hit him, he's safe, because I think he was going to beat it out. But they make the call there, and then you get Hill swinging. So great job by Preston Johnson to kind of come in and just kind of hold the game there. They bring in Marsh, and I thought we might get to him. We didn't. Cumbus pops up to second, and then Rowdy flies out. Allen then follows with a single, and then they throw the ball into the bullpen. I mean, the first baseman wasn't even looking for the ball, and Marsh throws it over everybody's head, and then Cam James flies out to left on an 0-2 count. So we don't do anything with it. We strand another runner, but we still feel like, we got a 4-2 lead here. We're probably okay. We get into the eighth here, and this is one of those things that kind of irritates me just a little bit. I don't like to see these, little league travel team baseball plays work, but it's going to be in the scouting report from now on. Okay, so I'm going to get to that shortly. So Schultz singles to the left side, and then you make the call. You bring in Houston Harding to pitch to the left-hander Collette. So it's lefty on lefty there. In the very first pitch he sees, he knocks right down the first baseline, bounces off the the corner out there, and kind of kicks into the outfield. And so then I've got runners at first and third. You pull Harding because you're trying to set up a righty-righty matchup. So Price comes in and does a good job. This ball wasn't hit hard enough for us to get the double play, but he makes him hit a slider, and he hits the ball to third. We try to turn it, just not hit quite hard enough, and especially to get a guy like Shelby, getting Shelby down the line there. So then they run this little league play, where, and you'd like to say, well, Cam Tuller comes in, we've got him picked off. I don't believe that they actually picked him off there. I think they gave themselves up trying to steal a run at home, which is exactly what they did. And so you got a left-handed pitcher up there, so of course if he sees the guy break, he's just going to throw over. He's looking right at him. That's what happens, and he gets caught in the rundown. We weren't especially efficient in the rundown there, but we made sure we got the out, but then they steal a run. And I'm sure if I'm Nick Mingione, I'm thinking, hey, I got runners on the corners here. I got to find a way to get one here, and then if that gets me to the ninth, then that gives me new life. We'll just see what happens. And so, tip of the cap to you, Mingione. We got to do a better job than this rundown. That's twice this year where a guy going from first to second has gotten in a rundown, and it's allowed the run to score from third. That's really the play you want, right? I mean, it's like you don't necessarily want that out between first and second. You want to be able to get the lead runner, and neither time have we done that. Now, of course, if we throw the ball away going home and all of a sudden the guy scores and the next guy goes to second, possibly even third, then, it's like a circus has come to town. But we're Mississippi State baseball, okay? We're not Bug Tussle High School out there, playing, 1B baseball hoping for the best. These are drills that we run all the time, and you got to be able to execute them in a ball game. So they steal a run there, and again, I think our own inability to manage that situation really contributed to that. All right, and so again, we win a ball game here, but I think it's important to kind of learn a lesson, because there will be a time, probably late, maybe you get in an SEC tournament or regional somewhere, and somebody's just trying to get a run to inch it a little bit closer, and they're willing to give you that out between first and second. They're willing to get that trail runner or run down to give you the out to get the run home. You know what? And we'd all make that trade, right? So now it's a 4-3 ball game. We get to bottom 8. Hancock hit by the pitch, and you're thinking, you know what, we're going to be able to get this guy here, Strickland, to come in. And then Tanner strikes out swinging on a 2-2 count. Hancock still second clean, and then Hatcher lines into a double play. He absolutely murders the baseball there, and I think Luke just thought the ball was going to get down, but he didn't. They were able to double him off pretty easily. We get to the 9th, and a lot of people said, you know what, here comes Sims. But instead it's Parker Stinnett. And I know a lot of people question this, and of course you've got the gift of hindsight now. You know, you don't want to be all arm-weary with Landon Sims, because what are you going to do, you know, if Landon has to go 2 or 3 innings on a Friday or on a Saturday? You can't trot him right back out there the next day. And so you may need to give him a day's rest. And so I think you got to put Parker Stinnett in some of these situations and see how he responds. Well, this time he did a really good job. So you get the ground out to the pitcher. And then, again, like we talked about, when the first guy gets on base in the 9th, it seems like 776,000% of the time he comes around to score. Usually when you get that first guy, it's like it all just kind of snowballs and you get on out of there. That's not what happened for us. So we get the ground out, and then there's a fielding error at third. So now all of a sudden you've got the tying run on base. Estep then grounds out, and we're able to kind of cut a guy down there. But then we give the wild pitch and let Estep go to second. So now the tying run is at second. And then we walk the go-ahead run, Ritter, on a full count. I thought we got squeezed a little bit there. But I also think, too, that the moment might have been a little bit much for Parker. But he responded and struck out Hill on 3 pitches. And a lot of people say, I didn't think there was much on a check swing. When I saw the replay from the outfield camera, I agree. That's how it looked from that camera. From the side, he clearly went. Now, he did a good job kind of holding his wrist, not trying to break his wrist there, but the bat did clear the plane of the plate. It was the right call. They didn't like it, but it was the right call, and good for Parker Stinnett. He'll only be better from this experience. Now, did he go out there and strike out the side of the 9th? No, he didn't. But you know what? He got the first out, and then he had an error, and the next thing you know, it kind of gets to you a little bit, because I don't care who you are, where you're from. You know, when you go out there and roll a ground ball, and the next thing you know, the tying runs on base through no fault of your own, you're going to have some issues. And it's going to take some time to kind of mentally prepare and get through that. He's not Landon Sims yet, okay? He's got that hammer curve, as he showed to Hill there. But the bottom line is we win all 3, and again, we've become pretty skilled at staying in ball games and winning them late, because when it boils down to battle of the bullpen, we're going to win that more times than not. And great job for the Bulldogs to get the sweep and kind of climb back into this race for the SEC West. As we mentioned at the top of the show, as we look around the league here, Auburn wins the Friday game at Arkansas at Baum Stadium. Had a chance to take the series, just couldn't close the deal. And then, of course, they lose in the 10th on Saturday in Game 3, a game that Auburn was up 5-0 in. You know, that Auburn bullpen is a little bit shaky. They did get some good pitcher of the weekend. Greenhill, I think, went 7 innings on that Thursday ball game, the game they won. So, we'll see him. And, Fitz is kind of rounding back into form. So, Auburn's starting pitching is going to be good. And I really think that our ball games down there are going to be similar to what we saw this weekend with Kentucky. I think it's going to be up managing the game, moving runners, kind of making them pay when they make a mistake, and then being efficient yourself. We know what kind of pitching coach Butch Thompson is. He'll have his guys ready to go. They'll be prepared. They'll have a good scouting report for sure. But Arkansas survives. They take 2 out of 3 on the weekend, so they'll stay. They'll stay pretty much where they are in the rankings. Auburn now 12-13 overall, 1-8 in the league. But again, probably a pretty dangerous 12-13 team, to be honest, because I'm sure they're going to be playing with a lot more confidence. They go on the road to one of the top teams in the country and they win a ball game, and I'm sure on their bus ride back they're thinking, you know what, those guys aren't better than us. We blew it. We lost the game. They didn't win it. We lost it. That's how I feel about it too. You go out there and you get a couple of pitches, you here or there, you don't elevate a couple of things, the next thing you know, you win the ball game. But give Arkansas some credit. They're down 5-0 in Game 3, and they battle back and win the ball game 6-5 in the 10th. That's the thing about Arkansas. I keep telling folks. Again, people think I'm trolling. Arkansas is the most complete team in the league. They are. They absolutely are. At least at this point. 22-4 and 7-2 overall. A lot of people say, well, Vanderbilt is. I think you could get Vanderbilt on a Sunday. Arkansas is going to win those church league softball games because they can swing the bat. All right, let's get a little deeper into this thing. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but Vanderbilt went down to Baton Rouge and swept LSU. Now, I think when the schedule first came out, I was probably thinking, you know what, LSU might be able to get one. That'll be big for us because anytime that somebody can take a game from Vandy and keep them from sweeping, that kind of keeps them closer to the pack. You know, we want them to be within striking distance so we get ready to go up there. But LSU didn't do it. And bigger news for LSU, Jaden Hill, who went from, Thursday to Friday to game 2 for them, left in the second inning with an impaired arm injury that Paul Maneri labeled heartbreaking in his post-game press conference. An MRI is scheduled for Monday. The worst is feared, and you hate that for a guy like Jaden Hill. Everybody that I've talked to down there tells me what a good guy he is, and there's a lot of that in college baseball. But here's the thing, good guy or not, you know, when you know a guy's is projected to go in the first round, potentially in the first 10 picks, and then all of a sudden the guy tears the UCL, you know, he's not going to be in the top 5 picks. Now, there are a lot of people in MLB draft circles that will tell you nobody's scared of Tommy John anymore. And there's some truth in that. But that doesn't mean you're going to take a guy in the first 10 picks. And so that's some economic free fall there for him. And so LSU off to their worst start in the SEC since 1969. Think about that. That's historically bad. They're 1-8 in the league, and the one was against us in a ball game that we kind of gave away. But you kind of understand my point here is that you're 1-8 now, and now you've lost one of your top 2 starters. So now you're going to have to throw Marceau on Friday, and I just don't know if offensively there's enough in that lineup to win those ball games. So now all of a sudden, do you move Labus up to Saturday? Do you throw somebody else on Sunday, one of your young guys? There's a lot of decisions that Paul Maneri is going to have to make, but this is shaping up to be a very difficult season for LSU. We expected them to take a step back, and a lot of people in Baton Rouge scoffed when the coaches picked LSU 4th in the West, behind Ole Miss, State, and Arkansas. You know, we all knew that they had lost a lot. And then what happens at LSU sometimes is they delude themselves into thinking, well, you know, we've got all these guys coming to school. We get all these guys that were supposed to be drafted coming to school. And sometimes it works. But here's the thing that I don't think a lot of people fully appreciate is, you know, here in the last 10 years, the SEC has gotten a lot better. A lot better. And so, especially the teams in the West, I mean, think about this for a second. What, just 2 years ago, Auburn was in Omaha with us. We've been the last 2 times. You know, Ole Miss has been super regionals, I guess 2 out of the last 3 years. And so, there's just not a lot of, wins you're going to pick up. You know, Arkansas has been to Omaha the last 2 years with us. They played for a national championship, back in 18. And so, LSU, in many ways, has kind of lost their spot in the pecking order. And so it's not the big deal anymore, to get that big LSU offer like maybe it was 10, 15 years ago. Now, that's not those Louisiana kids. It's a different deal. Yeah, I mean, it's like a cult. And I mean that in the most positive way possible. But nowadays, it's like, well, I can go play big-time SEC baseball at Arkansas. I can go play big-time baseball at Ole Miss or Mississippi State. I can go to Tennessee now, which Tennessee's not on the same level, but you kind of understand my point is that LSU no longer has a corner of the market on SEC baseball. They're not the destination they once were. That's not to take anything away from LSU. LSU is still great. They're still who we're chasing. But what's happened, I believe, is since Andy Cannizaro has left, that their recruiting has died down a little bit. Because it's not necessarily, listen, anybody can go out there and get those kids that are using college baseball for leverage for the MLB draft, and all of a sudden, we got 5 first-rounders in our class. Okay, cool. If they don't come to school, it doesn't mean anything. I think Andy's one of those guys, too, that could kind of sell those guys on, yeah, you could go and be a second or third rounder. If you come back, you'll be a first-rounder, and you'll never have to work again outside of Major League Baseball. And so if you want to look at when LSU really began to fade, it's when Andy Cannizaro left to come to Mississippi State. And I know there's a lot of people that have some hot takes about Andy Cannizaro, but there's no doubt about the fact the guy could coach hitting and the guy could recruit. And a relentless recruiter. And I don't think that LSU has been able to replace that energy. And I think they're paying for it now. Florida takes 2 out of 3 from Ole Miss. That's good. That's good for Mississippi State. Number one, we don't play Florida, but two, again, they put a couple losses on Ole Miss. It also keeps Twitter pretty quiet too. Florida wins the third game basically by throwing their shortstop for nearly 2 innings. Florida, I don't know how Florida runs out of pitching. I don't understand it. I haven't dug into it. But how does a program like Florida ever have to depend on a shortstop to go out there and pitch a couple of innings in an SEC weekend, and then they win? The guy's able to get a hold there, and they turned it over to a guy that I think had like an 11 ERA, and then he holds Ole Miss down, and they win it. And listen, Florida had the lead in game 2, just couldn't hold it. But again, that's a big deal. You know, it's a thing that I said all along about one of the reasons that I thought State would finish higher than Ole Miss in the standings is because the schedule for State is a little more favorable. We get Kentucky, Mizzou, you know, and they got to deal with Florida. And so when you begin to kind of break this thing down, even if State and Ole Miss are somewhat comparable teams, the schedule is more favorable to Mississippi State. We have to make that mean something, though. Tennessee really struggled at times this weekend, but found a way to take 2 out of 3 from Alabama. And, Tennessee, of course, swept LSU last weekend. Alabama should have won this thing. They ended up giving up 4 runs in the top of the 11th to lose the ballgame on Friday. But, Alabama, we expected them to be better. What's the problem that Alabama's having is on the back end. They're not able to close out games. They're able to compete for a while, and they're getting decent starting pitching more times than not, but they're not able to hold leads because they just don't have the pieces on the back end. And that's what cost them in that second game against Tennessee. Because you think you're good, next thing you know, you're losing in 11. And that's the extra inning games are not good for Alabama. They really thin you out. South Carolina, pretty good week for those guys. They win the midweek game and then take 2 of 3 from Georgia. Pretty big statement. I don't think Georgia's a great team. Georgia's got great pitching, but if you're South Carolina and you're trying to kind of get this thing back on track, that's a series you got to win. You absolutely have to win that when they do. And listen, Georgia's not a great team. 18-9 overall, 3-6 in the league. They did go beat Clemson this week, but come back and lose 2 out of 3. Those are the things you look at too. It's a road series win for South Carolina. One they're feeling good about. They're now 6-3 in the league. You got some big games coming up, but I'm sure they feel good about that. Probably the biggest surprise of the weekend in the Southeastern Conference is Missouri winning the series against A&M. Missouri is not a good baseball team. A&M is very average, and I think it shows, and I will not be surprised if they make a coaching change down there. Mizzou, 10-17, and they picked up a couple of wins this weekend. That's just insane to think about. They picked one off against Kentucky. They get 2 out of 3 against A&M. A&M absolutely drilled them in the first game. And then Mizzou bounces right back and wins the last 2. And neither of those games were close. I think they were 8-2, 7-1, something like that. They really just kind of coasted to those wins. And the book on A&M is they are limited offensively again. And then they're limited pitching-wise. Again, you got signs out there on Friday, but they just don't have the arms. There's no Lacey out there anymore for those guys. Asa Lacey was a dominant guy, and I'm glad to see him out of the league. Good luck in the pros, kid. But, and we're going to play both of these teams. And now you begin to look at these things. Okay, we should win those series, but we might even be able to sweep those series. Those are things you kind of get excited about now because we get both of those things at home. We've got to find a way to pick off these teams in the bottom half of the league. And I don't think anybody expected A&M to be especially resurgent this year. But I don't think anybody thought they'd be as bad as they have been. They're 19-11 and 3-6 in the league. And you remember early on they had some horrendous losses. And so their RPI is just absolutely pathetic. But that's a look around the league. And Bulldogs will be back in action Tuesday evening, 6:30, I believe, was first pitch against Southern University, their first visit to Duty Noble Field since they were here in the regional a couple years ago. They were here when we had, Miami. And so looking forward to seeing the Jags again. They're going to be well coached. They've done pretty well in their league. I think they're 8-3 in their league. They haven't been especially good overall, but you kind of expect that. But listen, they schedule kind of heavy in the non-conference to get ready for their league. And Southern has a really good chance to win the SWAC this year. So this is probably an NCAA regional team, and hopefully we can hit that midweek pitching hard. But it always seems they bring when a SWAC team comes in, it's like they have some guy throwing about 81, 82, and we get off on our front foot a little bit. So it'd be nice for us to get out here and take care of business pretty early on. Today's Top 10 list brought to you by Johnny Packer Eyewear. Johnny Packer Eyewear. You can find more about Johnny Packer Eyewear by going to johnnypacker.com. That's JOHNNYPACKER, johnnypacker.com. There were some baseball players at Duty Noble Field this weekend that could have benefited with johnnypacker.com. That high sky out there, right? Losing balls in the sun. It won't happen. See, Johnny Packer Eyewear is the Hollywood style with a little golden triangle flare. And one of the cool things, too, is part of every sale, a proceed from every purchase goes directly to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. This is a cause that I can absolutely get behind. I've had a lot of experience with CF over the years, none personally, but was part of a company that was very, very involved with fundraising for CF. So we got to know some of those families, and we'd write that big check every year, and then all of a sudden there'd be people within our community that would turn out that were affected by CF. And so I was very happy to partner with these guys. And listen, the styles are outstanding. Go to johnnypacker.com and you can pick, go to the catalog. And they've had a pretty solid run here as of late. So thank you, Boneyard listeners, for reaching out. Some outstanding frames here. They have run short of a couple things, but they tell me that a new shipment is on the way. The greenwood frames for females, very, very hot. Completely sold out right now, but they're replenishing that stock. So again, go to johnnypacker.com today. Check those out. I guess you probably got a dozen or more frames to choose from. And listen, you're going to need those sunglasses anyway because the sun is here, right? It is going to be sunshiny day. But if you're going to spend that kind of money on sunglasses, why not get some that also benefit a great cause? John Packer himself lives with cystic fibrosis and has defied the odds in many respects. So I like to do business with Bulldogs whenever we can. So again, let me encourage you, johnnypacker.com for your sunglass needs. And again, a portion of every purchase goes to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. Outstanding work those guys are doing. Okay, top 10 list, and I think that Johnny Packer would approve. I'm stealing this idea. I've got a bunch, okay? I've got probably 8 or 9 right now, but you guys keep sending them. Because once you guys text me and message me, I go ahead and text Roy, and then Roy kind of keeps that on our to-do list. Roy has been a great lieutenant in this whole top 10 thing. Really, really grateful for Roy. But I stole this idea from Eddie Trunk. Eddie Trunk said, hey, I'm going to need to do a show about this, about all these great albums that came out in 91. You may have forgotten, 1991, a huge year in rock music, huge year. It was kind of the end of the Hollywood heavy metal scene, and then it was kind of the beginning of grunge. So we had some overlap where you had some established hard rock acts that put out some of their best work, and then you had like some debut and breakthrough albums from some grunge bands. And so it was kind of the best of both worlds. It was a great time in music. Now, I'm going to give you some honorable mentions, and before I even start, I know that I'm going to get messages and tweets and dirty comments, and people may try to short sheet my bed and put sugar in the gas tank and all that sort of stuff. Nirvana is not on my list. And there's a couple reasons why, let me tell you. Number one, there was one good song on Nevermind. Yeah, I said it. Smells Like Teen Spirit is a classic song. It is an iconic song. But the rest of that album really wasn't very good. You say, well, Steve, no, there's In Bloom. It's not any good. The lyrics are completely incoherent.
And just because it has a catchy bass line, I'm not getting down with that. So I give an honorable mention to Nirvana's Nevermind. If you don't like it, start your own show. I don't have it in my top 10. I don't. I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I've told you countless times on the show, I do not like Nirvana. I think the best thing that ever came from Nirvana was Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters. Not a fan at all. At all. And maybe it's because I was such a fan of 80s metal, and a lot of people kind of falsely attribute the rise of grunge to Nirvana, which is completely false. Soundgarden had already sold millions of albums before Nirvana even had a record deal. So you can miss me with all of that stuff. Go back and listen to Mudhoney and Mother Love Bone and Green River and talk to me about the infancy of grunge, Screaming Trees, people like that. I'm not going to listen to it. But Nirvana gets an honorable mention. Also, Matthew Sweet's 100% Fun. I love that album. Came out in 1991. And then the Hardlines, Double Eclipse. That's another one that Neil Schon from Journey produced that album and ended up playing guitar on it. It is a really, really great album that kind of fit that early 90s genre as we were kind of making the transition. So check those guys out if you hadn't. That's Hardline. All right, so here's the top 10 albums top 10 rock albums from 1991. We might come back Wednesday and do top non-rock albums because there were some really, really good ones like Cypress Hill and Jodeci and some other bands that came out that were absolutely outstanding. So maybe we come back on that with that Roy on Wednesday because 91 was just a great year of music all the way around. So here are my favorite albums from 1991. Number 10, Temple of the Dog. This album didn't reach maximum airplay until 92, but it was recorded in 91. As a matter of fact, the song that we're going to pick today that we'll put on a Spotify list is Hunger Strike. That is the first song that Eddie Vedder ever sang to in a major recording studio. So before Pearl Jam's album was even recorded, Eddie Vedder had sang on Hunger Strike. And I want that played at my funeral. So if you guys are ever involved in that when I'm gone, and I'm sure many of you will outlive me, make sure they play Hunger Strike at the funeral. The number 9 album on my list is Mama Said by Lenny Kravitz. I'm a huge Lenny Kravitz fan. Love that album. That's the one that really kind of pulled me in, to be honest with you. Let Love Rule was kind of cool, but I thought it was a little bit hipster for me. And then when Always on the Run, which is our song that represents that album, when Slash was on there, that collaboration kind of pulled me in. I have every Lenny Kravitz album. I'm a shameless Lenny Kravitz fan. Number 8, and some of you are going to say, Steve, I can't believe you didn't put Nirvana on your list, but you put Mr. Big, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and it's the album Lean Into It, and that's the one that's got To Be With You. That's going to be our song on the playlist today, To Be With You, and it's a classic.